to the cloud. So welcome everyone to today's Meet the Funder. Today our Meet the Funder is with Aneeqa from the National Lottery Reaching Communities Fund. Aneeqa is going to run us through her presentation about the fund and about the priorities for Rochdale. And then once she's done that, we'll stop the recording of this of the session and we'll be open to Q&A. So over to Aneeqa.
Thanks, Liz. Hi, my name's Aneeqa. I'm a funding officer for both Rochdale and Oldham for the National Lottery Community Fund. And today I'm just going to go over sort of the application process, what the fund is all about, how to apply, and our priorities, and what support we can essentially give you guys while you're applying for funding. So I'll send the slides back to Liz and she can send them out to you afterwards. So don't worry about having to make notes or anything. And like Liz said, any questions, keep them till the end. And then I'm going to try and even it out with the presentation for half an hour and questions for half an hour. So we've got time for conversations. So I'm just going to try. Okay, this is failing already. Oh, there we go. So those are 4 things I'm going to go through. That's the overview of the agenda. So the main purpose of today's session is to help improve your understanding of our core funding programs and how to apply. So we relaunched Reaching Communities in 2020. We made some slight changes to the process in response to the pandemic. Though this presentation will make reference to awards for all, the majority of the content is for Reaching Communities, so that's funding over £10,000. Reaching Communities is managed by our local teams, our local regional teams. Also, it's important to note that this isn't necessarily a call to funding. The demand is really high at the minute for Rochdale, and unfortunately I'm having to say no to a lot of good proposals, more than I wish. So obviously feel free to apply, but just bear in mind that demand is really high at the minute, and Liz knows as well too well how much we are struggling in Rochdale in terms of funding. So yeah, any questions, keep it till the end and we can have a look. So about the National Lottery. So basically we're a non-departmental public body. We deliver public funds, so we work at arm's length from the government, but essentially we are accountable to Parliament and the public for our activities. So the income of all the lottery distributors comes from the sale of lottery tickets. So I'd say about every £2 spent on a lottery ticket, about 28% goes to good causes. We are also the largest distributor of the lottery distributors. So we're responsible for distributing about 40% of funds raised for good causes. As you can see here, Greater Manchester, we awarded around 21 million per year, and we are currently supporting over 1,300 groups across all our funding programs, so that's not just RC. So our purpose, so basically we understand people and understand what's needed. So we know that you guys know best what your community needs because you're the ones on the ground doing all the work. So we listen and we collaborate and we make good things happen. So the relaunch that we did in 2020, that was guided by you guys. We did a consultation and everything that's refreshed was suggested by the public. So the first sort of, sorry, go back. So the first sort of thing we look at in an application is, wait, I'm getting confused because on my right hand side it's the next slide, but what you're seeing is different. So let me just get my brain into gear 1 second. Are you seeing our purpose? Yeah, people led. You're seeing people led now, right? Okay. So people in the lead is essentially our principle. So when you're applying for funding, we want your funding proposal to demonstrate how you're people-led and how people and communities are involved from the start. Granted, there are many principles which underpin the people in lead value and framework, but we mainly consider three things. Is your organisation people-led? It's important to us that you involve your community in the design and delivery of your project and development of the activities you're planning. To enable you to do this, you might want to ask yourself a few questions, which are on the slide, as part of your application. We also want to see, does it build on strengths? We want to see you encouraging people who benefit from your project to get more involved in running the organisation and making decisions. So for example, service users could become trustees or volunteers. You could find ways to employ them or support them with further training. These are the things that build on people's strengths. The next thing we look at is how well connected you are. We want to know that you've got a good understanding of other activities and services in your community, and you'll complement these and add value to what's already there rather than duplicate activity. So for example, you could speak to other groups in the area who are doing similar work. You might already have established relationships with these. Like I said, the presentation will go out later, so there's a link at the bottom of that slide. Have a look at that video. It's a 10-minute video, but it's a really, really good video to explain people in the lead a little bit further. It's an interesting video, and it just gives you a little bit more of a, I guess, a visual idea of what we mean and the what people in the fund feel like people in the lead means also, as well as groups. So this is a case study example of people in the lead. I'll just stop for a moment so you can read that. But you can see here that the organisation have included the community in the design, delivery and the development of their work, and also the benefits of them doing this as well. So I'll just stop for a moment and you can have a read of that. Okay, if you've got any questions in terms of people in the lead, note them down and we'll come back to them at the end. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about our approach as a funder. We know that communities come in all different shapes and sizes, and we like to think that the National Lottery Community Fund is for everyone, and we need to ensure that we are reaching out to those that maybe don't think we are for them. And there's lots of pieces of local work that we're doing to ensure this. So for example, in Greater Manchester last year, we did a piece of work around engaging Black and minoritized groups, the barriers they might face, and what can we do to address those barriers. There's that piece of work is ongoing, and we're consulting with different groups and stakeholders. There should be a report coming out soon to show you our findings on what we hope to achieve and how we hope to improve on that aspect of our work as well. We are a flexible funder, we always have been, but in response to the pandemic, we have become a little bit more flexible. And it's not just what we'll fund that's flexible, but our grant making process as well have been refreshed and redesigned to be a little bit more flexible, allowing our processes to adapt to the different types of funding that your organisation will need, particularly while responding to the pandemic as well. To enable us to do that, we will take a proportionate approach to assessment and grant management on the scale based on your size of your organisation, the complexity, the amount that you've requested. And we do recognise that not one size fits all. So for example, we wouldn't expect the same level of detailed information to be provided by a group that wants 50k over 1 year, as opposed to a request over 500k over 5 years. So we are proportionate in the amount of information we ask, and we hope that you would be too. And it's your local officer's role to assist you through that process, so that you know how much information we need from you, and the extra sort of information that we need, we will sort of ask for it as well. Our approach remains conversational and relational despite the lockdown restrictions. If your idea is a good fit with our priorities, we do talk to groups and we do try and fully understand your project. And if you're successful in being awarded funding, we will keep talking to you as well. So in terms of priorities, we have three main funding priorities in England, which came out of discussions with grant holders, stakeholders and groups across the sector. We asked them what they thought was important, what they value, etc. And these are the things they came up with. These are the same for all England funding. So we have stronger relationships, places and spaces, and early action. In addition to this, we do have local priorities as well. So each local funding officer does what we call a local action plan for each of their local authority areas. In that action plan for the year, we'll outline what we're looking to fund. It doesn't necessarily mean we don't fund what's on there. It just helps us guide decisions. So for example, if we spent most of our budget on funding youth projects last year, we want to sort of fund less youth projects this year and focus on another beneficiary area or thematic area. Doesn't mean we'd never fund youth again. It just means we want to make sure our funding is evenly distributed and suited to the needs of Rochdale, and in my case, Oldham as well. In addition to this, and due to the pandemic, we will continue to prioritise proposals which respond to the crisis. So we can support you to continue to deliver activities, respond to the crisis or recovery, or we can fund you to change, adapt and become more resilient to respond to future challenges. So we'll also prioritise groups that share our equalities, diversity and inclusion principles. And we want to know, in that sense, we want to know your organisation's approach to EDI and understand your approach to equalities, from accessibility to participant and decision making as well. We do expect your organisation and activities we fund to be open and accessible. We promote equalities and challenge discrimination as well. This is why one of the main priorities, especially in Rochdale, is LGBTQ+ groups, Black and minority ethnic groups, those working with older disabled people. Those are the sort of EDI priorities that we look at in terms of the fund. In terms of locally in Rochdale, I'm looking at LGBTQ+ organisations. Since I've been here, I'm not aware of any groups that have come forward for RC funding. They might have done for Awards for All, but I'm not aware of Awards for All. Those areas help us guide our assessment. It's not exclusive. It doesn't mean we wouldn't fund anything else either. So this is about impact. So this is one of the other main things we talk about at first stage. So we fund projects that work to make positive changes in the community. And it's really important in your first stage proposal that you demonstrate the difference that you want to make in the community, including who will benefit and how. So we really want specifics when it comes to impact. And I always give the example and say, obviously, depending on your project, we will support X number of beneficiaries, and X percentage of those will experience, for example, an increase in confidence. So that's how specific we want you to be, though we don't want tons and tons of information at this stage, but that's the sort of thing we'll be looking at in terms of impact, as well as how you would measure that impact as well. And you need to demonstrate that it's realistic and achievable. Why do you think it's realistic and achievable? Have you managed to deliver to this scale before? Have you gathered learning previously from other projects? So yeah, that's people in the lead, priorities and impact. Those are three main things we'd look at first stage. So here's a very simple example of measuring impact. Again, I'll give you a moment to read this. It's a very basic example and it will look different for all organisations, again, depending on the size, scale and complexity. But again, you can get a general idea of impact. I'll just move on swiftly. Again, you can have a look in your own time when you receive the presentation. So our two main funding programs, National Lottery Awards for All and Reaching Communities and Partnerships. These are our main responsive funding programs. They are the same programs that operated before COVID, but with a few small changes, like I said. We'd encourage you, oh, what have I done there? One second. So we'd encourage you to apply online, although if you have any communication requirements, we're more than happy to have a conversation in another way as well. So Awards for All, probably our most popular programme in England, directed at supporting smaller grassroots organisations, and it's managed by our team in Newcastle. I work with Reaching Communities, so I wouldn't be able to answer any questions for Awards for All, so don't ask me any. I'll direct you to our website, and there'll be an email address as well that you can email if you've got any questions regarding Awards for All. So Reaching Communities, this is managed by our regional team, so the rest of the presentation is more focused on this now. So this is aimed at organisations and communities with an aspiration to work on larger proposals, anything over £10,000, running for up to 5 years. So with RC, you can expect us to be flexible and responsive to your community needs, whether you need long-term or short-term, whether your request is for a particular activity or is to create more fundamental change, or whether the funding is to support a single organisation or to bring organisations together. In Rochdale, I think I would encourage partnership applications. We rarely get them. So that is something we would be interested in having conversations about if anyone is interested in that. We can support organisations with activity as well as core costs, and we can fund expansion of existing projects as well as the development of new ways of working. We can cover core costs for sharing, learning and showing impact. Organizational development costs as well. We really would support those, because I think one of the main aims, particularly locally, is supporting more smaller grassroots organizations who haven't necessarily previously been able to access larger pots of funding. So this way of working, this way of allowing groups to apply for development costs is a way of sort of supporting that ambition to support more smaller groups. We can also support groups to adjust to the new normal and focus on financial, strategic or operational planning. So this is a really brief overview of the process. Visit our website, check your eligibility, apply online. The funding officer in charge of your local area will be in touch with you. Potentially might have arrange a phone call or a meeting and discuss your idea further, ask some questions. That will be for the first stage, which is idea stage. Once the funding officer's got all the information they think they need, the first stage application will go to a Greater Manchester team. That team is made up of funding officers and managers who decide whether to support your proposal to next stage, which is full funding proposal. It's at that stage, if you are successful at second stage, we will come back to you and ask you for a fuller application. We'll guide you through a guidance document, we'll meet with you, go through the additional questions we have, and then it's up to you to come back to us with that full proposal. Again, funding officer will take that proposal, write up their assessment and present it this time to a Northwest panel, again made up of head of region, funding officer and managers as well. That's when you'll get your final decision. All in all, we hope it doesn't take more than 9 to 12 months, but it depends on, firstly, the pipeline that the local office has got at the time and how long it takes the group to come back with the full funding proposal. At the first stage, we hope to get you sort of initial decision within 12 weeks, if not quicker. So who can apply? That sort of eligibility list there. We're particularly interested in those communities who we haven't been able to reach previously, or who have traditionally had poorer outcomes or have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic as well. So these are the questions you'll be asked on the application form. There's a couple of new questions there compared to last time, but those are the questions. Again, because the funding officer more often than not does have conversations with you after you've submitted, I wouldn't worry too much about writing tons and tons of information to those questions initially, especially if your request is small. Like I said, we want to be proportionate to your request. But yeah, those are the sort of questions we work through at first stage. If your application is eligible and fits with our priorities, obviously, like I said, we'll come back and ask for more information at second stage. Those are 4 things we'll ask for more information about. I think the financial position is new on our relaunch, and since the pandemic, we want to know about your financial situation and more detail on your proposal as well. But again, when it comes to second stage, there's a full guidance document that will take you through. Just follow the subheadings and you should be okay. But again, your officer will talk you through that. If your proposal involves working with children or young people or vulnerable adults, we will ask you whether you have a safeguarding policy and direct you to a various advice and website as well. So if you're successful, you are rewarded your funding. Your funding officer will set you up a grant induction, talk you through your terms and conditions, official start dates and payments, etc. Again, we're flexible. We offer the same amount of support, and we keep that approach conversational and encourage groups to be open and honest about the project progress. We're here to support you. If anything goes wrong, again, we're here to guide you, direct you. Things don't always go to plan. We all know that for the past couple of years, and we will guide you through that. All we ask from you is to be completely transparent with us and keep us up to date. So that's it for the presentation. If you need any more information, those are the contact details. Liz can also give you my email address if you want to get in touch with me directly, but also Action Together as well. Me and Liz work really closely together. So when it comes to supporting groups, we're both here to do that. If I can't help you, I'll direct you to Liz. If Liz can't help you, she'll direct you to me. It works both ways. So don't hesitate to get in touch with either of us. And yeah, thanks for listening. I hope I didn't go too fast or ramble or anything.
That was brilliant. Thanks very much, Aneeqa. And yeah, just to reiterate, Aneeqa will send the slides to me, and I'll make sure those are sent out promptly. So you've got all the. There were some good links in there, weren't there? Like the link to the video. Cool. All right, I'm going to stop recording now, and then we'll go into the question and answer section. So bear with me 1 second while we do.